So we've got an opportunity to talk to George Greaves and Janet Robinson. Now, I'm going to let George and Janet introduce themselves and talk a little bit about how we know each other and what we're doing. But really, the basis of this is I really wanted to enable people to not just hear from, you know, the likes of me and business leaders and all that kind of stuff, which is great. It's really about trying to help everyone understand the perspectives of people at all different levels and different times in their journey. People that are coming through and on the way up, those that are finishing and can offer some really good advice. So I'm going to kick off with Janet. Hello, Janet. How you doing?
Morning, Dan.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, so I say, Dan, I'm Janet Robinson. I've been in the education, mainly sort of apprenticeship, traineeship sort of sector for around 16 years now. A variety of responsibilities, senior management, regional, operational, run lots of Ofsted inspections. So I've had a really sort of good angle on everything that's expected and as far as quality through education. So I met Dan actually through being a governor of the Lee UTC. So I've actually known Dan for 3 years now. And what a man he is. And we've sort of followed on what he's been doing, and just recently, and I think because of COVID, and I've got to that stage, I want to give something back. I felt it was a great opportunity. If I don't do it now, I never will. Was to join PTI, and with joining, I've certainly not looked back. But I want to sort of take the educational, helping the young find their first employment. And if I can bring some of that, you know, to my vast network, you know, I'll be more than happy to sort of offer my skills. So again, you know, my area is education. I'm currently working on with PTI a new apprenticeship standard, a level 4 for Tech for Good, and also supporting on a new T level. So bringing a lot of my network together in order to sort of join the dots. So that's a little bit about me, but I've known also George for about 4 years, I believe, George. At the time I was director of a London training company, and George was our recruitment and sort of sales manager for the public sector. Right from the beginning, I saw something different in George, and really since then I've been sort of mentoring him and helping him out. And actually even now we're currently working on some new traineeships and opportunities for the youth.
So my name's George Greaves. I'm currently founder of Greaves Consultancy, which is my own organisation I set up back in October. So a bit of background around myself with my career. So I've worked in education sector since leaving education. So since the age of 16, I enrolled on a traineeship, then onto an apprenticeship in customer service, and then onto a management apprenticeship, and then now going on to a level 4 apprenticeship. So I've worked heavily in the apprenticeship space, working with the NHS for over 4 years, working on specific recruitment targets, especially within London Trusts. One of the main clients I'm still working with today is Bart's Health. So I've worked with them over the past sort of 4 years, helping with their sort of entry recruitment for their business admin apprenticeships, but also designing that pre-employment program as well. Because I'm a big believer, once you get a young person in the job, you've got to make sure they're ready for the job. So just coming on to obviously what I'm working with Janet on. So we're currently designing a traineeship, which is also a mentoring program. So it's going to be delivered as two. So I'm going to be delivering it in partnership with a charity organisation as a mentoring program, and then also with a training provider as a traineeship. And basically what the program is delivered by myself, and it's basically a series of modules which I believe will get a young person to not just a stage where they're career ready, but also just with general life skills as well. So the course is going to include for example, areas around sort of what is a credit score, because no one tells you about it in school. No one tells you what finance is in school or anything like that. And you see the amount of young people, as soon as they get eligible for these kind of things, some of the sort of bad paths they go down just because they haven't got the knowledge. So it's not just maybe around so much the employability, it is life skills, which I think sort of then leads on to making you more employable and building that sort of perfect sort of person as well, I believe. And also just giving young people them tools and sort of advice on, right, there's the career, but also if you have an idea or if you've got aspirations to start your own business, because I feel a lot of sometimes I felt when I had ideas, especially with even working with organisations, you get squashed down because obviously no one would ever want you to leave or anything like that, or necessarily take an idea that would necessarily not earn the organisation money. So I think working with individuals that maybe that stereotype sort of career isn't for them, and working sort of on like an entrepreneur sort of ship route as well. But doing that through a traineeship, because I think especially with the government's announcement last Wednesday, I actually sit on the youth board for Youth Employment UK, and I've been an ambassador for the last since I joined DSS, so that was 4 years now. And the reason I joined them is because I was doing so much within sort of the education sector. I wanted to have more of an impact and just share my sort of journey as well with young people, because I think especially when I sort of not necessarily today, but normal on a day-to-day before COVID, I'd been a three-piece suit, and it takes a lot of young people never think I've been through the journey that I have because necessarily of what I look like. And I think what I like doing is just sharing my experience of necessarily being expelled from school, not being academic at all, having dyslexia, like hardly sort of being able to spell. Janet can know that from my emails. And I think just sharing that sort of journey and realising that I've got a different pathway, but I've still necessarily got to the same point where I wanted to. And not saying I've got there because there's a long way to go, but just saying that I didn't necessarily have to go to university to get where I am, and sort of I was a manager at sort of 19, head of sales and client services. So I think it's just with the traineeship, I wanted to include sort of my journey, but also the route that I took as well, because I think it works really well with that sort of mentoring as well. Because I think it's all good getting people into work, but what happens once they've got the job? Because otherwise it's a vicious circle. If they fall out of employment, they're at a worse stage than actually was before even getting a job. So yeah, that's something like what I'm currently working on within the traineeship sort of space.
There's always a danger that people see the outcome. So they look at you now, you're a smart guy, you're doing really well, you've got a really positive journey in front of you. I mean, are you happy to tell us a little bit about your
I'll be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, tell us a bit about your journey. It's not that dissimilar to mine, but you're learning it a lot quicker, which is a really positive thing.
Definitely. Yeah, no, so I'm really pleased you've actually said that, Dan, because I always do like going sort of and being just 100% honest, because I think it's much better too. And obviously we can cut things out as well if I do say the wrong thing. So just starting with my journey. So I think necessarily, like I said, with sort of just growing up in Romford and necessarily the nature of my family as well. I think coming from that sort of that working class background, but also, like I said, heavily involved with the travelling community as well. From a young age, I think when people say necessary stuff like gangs, like you just think of a typical gang, whereas sometimes it is easily these equivalent to gangs are incorporated in sort of other communities. And sort of at a young age, I was involved with a sort of a travelling community in a big group of them, I'd say, as well. So I was sort of mixing with the wrong crowd, I think it's a good word to use, from a very young age. So I got exposed to a lot that you should never really get exposed to. And I think that's why I like doing the stuff I do now, because I think, especially when you're young, what you see is a massive thing. And if you can stop young people from seeing certain things or going down for certain routes, it hopefully stops them from necessarily going through the experiences that I did. So I think with sort of my education as well, I was never academic, and it wasn't that I was naughty. I could just never concentrate in a class, and I could never stand not being told what to do, because I've got on so well with employment, but it's just a way of being sat in a class with 30 other people and all being taught the same. And I didn't think that was necessarily fair. So I was always in them sort of support groups, but I think even in schools, like, they do have some good support functions and stuff like that, but sometimes you still got like necessarily big classes in these support groups. So how are you getting that one-to-one support? So I think I've always suffered with sort of education and concentrate. So my behaviour was sort of terrible within school. And like I was saying, going back to the sort of social background as well. So at the age of 13, 14, I started selling drugs, and I actually got expelled from school for selling drugs when I was 14. So I was in year 9. And it was just before I was meant to choose my options, because actually at the time, the careers advisor was advising me to go college on a 2-day-a-week course, which sounds familiar. You probably may have heard of them sort of schemes before, and they normally advise for the naughty kids early on. So I didn't even get the chance to go on to that because I sort of snuffed my
Sounds very familiar, George. All sounds very familiar.
Snuffed the chance before that. So I then went to a PRU, which was like a referral unit, and I went there and I was there for 6 months. But what that sort of showed me is like once I got the attention and support I needed, I wasn't necessarily, I always thought I was thick. Like once I got the attention and people explained it into my sort of terms, I can understand and get on with things. And I think at that time it was me and another gentleman in the class, so there was 2 of us. So it was like, I used to say it was like getting like going private school, because you had that such good attention and I couldn't never work it out. Like I've been in trouble and I've been put in a place where I've got like one-to-one attention, but it helped me so much in just sort of my learning. So when I was at the unit, they actually recommended and said that I was probably one of the best young people they've ever had, because I wasn't actually a naughty kid. I just basically wasn't focused, and what I used to do is just disrupt people, and then I got involved with the wrong crowd, and that's what led to necessarily that.
Can I I just want to pick up a couple of things with you. Because what you're covering is incredibly important, and it's as relevant today as it ever has been. Which, as a friend of mine called Herman Stewart, who does mentoring. And in the professional world, there is this whole, right, you're professional, you're excellent, you know, you go and get a mentor. And it wasn't until I was like last year, I went and found a mentor, a proper mentor. But when you're a young person, right, at school, and you're just being squashed into a box and you don't fit, right? So you get bored and frustrated, and then you feel stupid, or I certainly did.
That's it.
Where's the idea then, and this is why I love what you're talking about, is that what they do is they go, well, we can't deal with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you off over here. But what they're doing is effectively giving you mentoring. It's this thing, which is the whole system is backwards. It's like we have a score and a league table, and you're going to fit into it. And if you don't, we can't be bothered to deal with you. So off you go over there. And is that fair to say that's your experiences of?
Do you know what, Dan? I'm a big believer in every single bad experience I've made has sort of helped me to get to where I am now, especially the sort of stage I'm at now and the mindset I'm in. I look back on some of the things and I feel like I've done that at such an early age. I'm not going to make any, like the mistakes that I have done previously again, but also helping sort of people not make their mistakes themselves. And I think, it's been a massive positive because I can share them as well, where I'm such an open person. And I think I can relate to a lot of young people, where I'm only 22 as well, and necessarily experience I've got as well. Some young people, like when I sort of talk at schools, I've spoken at over sort of 150 schools over the last sort of 4 years through Youth Employment UK. And I think once sort of people really understand my journey, they can relate. And I do believe I can inspire young people as well. And I sort of, one of my aspirations is I want to be a sort of motivational speaker. I would love to do stuff around coaching. And that's sort of where I aspire to be, because I believe once you give people attention through mentoring and stuff like that, no matter what your background is, if you've come from like a council state or necessarily you've got a BAM background, which BAM background is what I'm actually working with the Metropolitan Police with at the moment. So I've got a session next Thursday, and it's called Mentoring Circle. So I'm basically, what I'm a big believer in is I can basically get that traction with young people, get their attention, and then bring in the opportunities. Because sometimes when you've got a 50-year-old police officer telling you to become a police officer, you're not going to be attracted, especially if you're from Newham, because the majority of young people can necessarily be involved in sort of gangs and stuff like that. So it's about changing their perspective, and which I feel with my experiences, I can use my experiences to change their perspectives on careers before they've even made that sort of wrong pathway. Because I think a lot of young people just necessarily in these like sort of areas where you have this sort of stuff going on, and it isn't sort of, it's out of their control to be able to move and stuff. But if there's things put in place and you can support changing their perspectives, hopefully once on a good career pathway, they can then obviously progress.